February 4th, 2026, Washington, D.C., Vice President JD Vance stands before representatives from 55 countries at the State Department's Critical Minerals Ministerial. What he's about to announce will reshape global commodity markets forever. Price floors for silver, for copper, for rare earth elements. The words ripple through trading floors worldwide like an earthquake. Within hours, social media explodes. YouTube videos with millions of views proclaim, silver's $100 price floor confirmed. Government guarantees your silver stack. The trade of a lifetime. But here's what they're not telling you. This isn't the story you've been sold. This is the story they buried in the fine print. The story that separates those who will make generational wealth from those who will lose everything betting on a lie. Let me be clear from the start. Something real is happening. The United States government has fundamentally changed its approach to critical minerals. Silver is now officially designated as critical to national security. A $12 billion strategic stockpile called Project Vault has been announced. Price floors are being discussed at the highest levels of government. All of this is 100% authentic. All of this is documented, and all of it has been catastrophically misunderstood by nearly everyone talking about it. If you've been watching the viral videos, if you've been reading the breathless headlines, if you've been told that the US government has just set a hard price floor that will make your silver coins worth $100 per ounce overnight, you need to understand something right now. You've been set up, not by scammers, not by conspiracy theorists, but by people who either don't understand what's actually happening, or who understand it perfectly and are counting on you not to. I've spent the last 3 months investigating this story. I've read every official document, every Federal Register filing, every USGS report, every statement from the Trump administration, every line of the Section 232 proclamation, every word of JD Vance's remarks at the Critical Minerals Ministerial. And what I found will shock you. The price floor everyone's talking about, it's real, but it's not what you think. It's not designed to make you rich. It's designed to protect something else entirely. And if you don't understand the difference, you're about to make a very expensive mistake. To understand what's really happening, we need to start with 3 facts, 3 truths that are absolutely verifiably authentic as of February 2026. Everything else builds from here. The first truth is this: the United States is engaged in an existential supply chain war with China. This isn't economics. This is national security. China doesn't just mine critical minerals. They control the processing. They control the refining. They control the transformation of raw materials into usable industrial inputs. In 2024, the U.S. imported 80% of the rare earth elements it used. For silver specifically, the U.S. imported 64% of its silver consumption in 2024. This dependency isn't just an economic problem. When China sneezes, American manufacturing catches pneumonia, which brings us to November 6th, 2025, the day everything changed for silver. On November 6th, 2025, the U.S. Geological Survey published the final 2025 list of critical minerals, outlining 60 minerals vital to the U.S. economy and national security. For the first time in history, silver made the list. Think about that. Gold has never been on this list. But silver, dismissed for decades as just a precious metal, treated as gold's cheap cousin, is now officially designated as critical to American national security. Why? Because silver is used in electrical circuits, batteries, solar cells, and antibacterial medical instruments. It's in your smartphone, your electric vehicle, your solar panels, the missiles protecting our country. The satellites overhead, the AI data centers powering the technological revolution. Silver isn't just money anymore. It's the most electrically conductive element known to science. It's irreplaceable in modern technology, and America is importing nearly 2/3 of what it needs. The inclusion of silver on this list triggers specific consequences. The list of critical minerals informs direct investments in mining and resource recovery from mine waste, stockpiles, tax incentives for U.S. mineral processing, and streamlined mining permitting. It also, and this is crucial, makes silver eligible for something called a Section 232 investigation. More on that in a moment. The third truth: on January 14th, 2026, the Trump administration signed a Section 232 proclamation. This is where the price floor story begins, and where most people get it catastrophically wrong. Section 232 allows the president to adjust imports of any article if those imports threaten national security. It's been used for steel, for aluminum, and now it's being invoked for critical minerals. But here's the critical part that the viral videos don't mention. Section 232 isn't about setting prices. It's about protecting domestic producers. The proclamation initiates what the administration calls reference prices and border-adjusted tariffs. These are technical terms, and understanding what they actually mean is the difference between making money and losing your shirt. Then came February 4th, 2026, the Critical Minerals Ministerial, JD Vance's announcement that changed everything. This is the moment. This is the clip that went viral. This is what everyone heard and thought. The government is guaranteeing silver prices. But that's not what he said. Listen again. Each stage of production, real-world fair market value, maintained through adjustable tariffs. He's not talking about your coins, he's talking about industrial supply chains. Let me show you what this really means. Here's where the hype videos get it dead wrong, and here's where people who don't read past the headlines are about to lose a lot of money. The government is not setting a price floor for you to sell your coins at a profit. They are not creating a guaranteed $100 buyback program. They are not revaluing your personal silver stack. So what are they doing? On February 4th, 2026, Vice President JD Vance told a meeting of more than 50 countries on Wednesday aimed at boosting access to critical minerals that the US will establish a system creating price floors for the commodities. But listen to what he said next. Vance said the United States was proposing a trading bloc for critical minerals, and many countries had already signed on to the plan. A trading bloc, not a domestic price guarantee, a coordinated international system involving allied nations. Here's how predatory pricing works. China mines or refines a critical mineral. They sell it below cost, taking losses, to drive American and European producers out of business. Once the competition is dead, they raise prices and control the market. It's happened before. With solar panels, with steel, with rare earth magnets. Western companies couldn't compete with artificially low Chinese prices, went bankrupt, and suddenly China controlled entire industries. The price floor is designed to stop this. By setting reference prices and applying adjustable tariffs at the border, the US can say, if China tries to sell silver below cost to destroy our mines, we'll add tariffs to bring the domestic price back up to sustainable levels. This is a floor for producers, not for speculators. It means if China tries to crash the price of silver to bankrupt American mines, the US will apply tariffs to keep the domestic price stable enough for those mines to survive. It does not mean the government will buy your 1-ounce coins for $100 each. It does not mean retail silver prices are guaranteed. It does not mean you can walk into a coin shop and demand a government-backed premium. If you bought silver expecting the government to write you a check for $100 an ounce, you've made a bet on a backstop that doesn't exist for retail investors. So if the price floor isn't for us, where is the real money going? 2 days before JD Vance's announcement about price floors, something else happened. Something that received far less attention in the viral videos and breathless social media posts. But this is where the real story and the real money is hiding. Project Vault, announced February 2nd, 2026. A $12 billion strategic reserve for critical minerals. And almost nobody understands what it really means. Let's break down what Project Vault actually is, because this is where your attention should be. This is where the smart money is going, and this is where fortunes will be made, not by holding coins, but by understanding the system. The EXIM Board of Directors approved a direct loan of up to $10 billion for Project Vault, more than double the largest financing in EXIM's history. But here's what makes this different from anything we've seen before. Project Vault isn't being run by the government. It's a public-private partnership, an independently governed entity that will store essential raw materials in facilities across the United States. Think of it like the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, those massive underground salt caverns that store hundreds of millions of barrels of oil for emergencies. But instead of oil, it's critical minerals, including silver. The minerals will be sourced both domestically and from allied nations. The stockpile covers all 60-plus critical minerals on the USGS list: lithium, rare earths, copper, uranium, and yes, silver. But here's where it gets interesting. Here's where the real opportunity lies. Here's what the viral videos aren't telling you. Initial indications of participation from original equipment manufacturers include Clarios, GE Vernova, Western Digital, Boeing, and General Motors. De-risking. That's the key word. The government isn't just stockpiling minerals. They're creating guaranteed buyers and guaranteed suppliers. Here's how it works. Mining companies sign long-term supply deals with Project Vault. They receive guaranteed prices and volumes, protected from Chinese price manipulation. American manufacturers buy from the stockpile at stable prices. Everyone's protected from market volatility and geopolitical disruptions. The real winners aren't the people holding coins. The winners are the national champions, the specific companies being handed de-risked, decade-long deals to supply Project Vault. The government is essentially saying to certain mining companies, we will backstop your business to ensure you can grow, regardless of what the global spot price does. So who are these national champions? Who's actually positioned to benefit from this $12 billion initiative? According to the official EXIM Bank announcement, suppliers servicing Project Vault include Hartree Partners, Mercury Americas, and Traxys. These aren't household names, they're commodity trading houses, the middlemen between mines and manufacturers, and they just secured positions in what might be the most lucrative government contract of the decade. But there's another category of winners, and this is where individual investors might actually have an opportunity, if they know where to look. Domestic mining companies producing critical minerals on U.S. soil, particularly silver producers. Apollo Silver Corp announced the day after silver was added to the Critical Minerals List that they welcomed the U.S. government's efforts to strengthen domestic silver mining. Their Calico Silver project in California hosts the country's second largest primary silver deposit in the U.S. Fast 41. That's the US government initiative aimed at streamlining permitting processes for critical resource projects. Projects that used to take 10-15 years to permit might now take 3 to 5 years. Other domestic silver producers are positioning themselves similarly. Mines in Alaska, Idaho, Nevada. Projects that were economically marginal at 20-25 of silver are suddenly attractive at protected prices with government backing. But there's another layer to this story, another mechanism the government is using that very few people are paying attention to: the Defense Production Act. Originally passed in 1950 during the Korean War, it gives the president extraordinary powers to ensure domestic production of materials essential to national defense. Remember, silver is now designated as critical to national security, which means it's eligible for DPA contracts. In October 2025, the government announced a $35.6 million investment to acquire a 10% stake in Canadian-based Trilogy Metals to support the Upper Kobuk mineral projects in Alaska. The investment backs the development of critical minerals, including copper, zinc, gold, and silver. The Pentagon inked a landmark deal in July 2024 with rare earth miner MP Materials that included an equity stake, price floor, and offtake agreement. The Commerce Department announced plans to finance the startup critical mineral company USA Rare Earth in exchange for an ownership stake. Do you see the pattern? The government is taking direct equity positions in mining companies. They're providing financing. They're guaranteeing offtake agreements. They're creating price floors for specific companies through specific contracts. This isn't abstract policy. This is concrete industrial strategy. So what does all of this mean for the average investor? For someone who's been watching the viral videos and wondering if they should buy silver? The answer is, it depends on what you're actually investing in. If you're buying physical silver coins or ETFs and hoping that the price floor will magically make your investment worth $100 per ounce, you're making a bet on something that doesn't exist for retail investors. The spot price of silver is still determined by global markets. It's still subject to futures manipulation. It's still vulnerable to Chinese supply flooding. The border-adjusted tariffs might help stabilize domestic industrial prices, but they won't directly affect what you can sell your coins for at a local dealer. But if you're looking at mining companies that are positioned to supply Project Vault, if you're identifying domestic producers that might receive Defense Production Act backing, if you're analyzing which companies have the permits, the deposits, and the relationships to become national champions, that's a completely different investment thesis. These companies trade on the stock market. Some are microcaps, some are mid-tier producers, some are junior miners with promising deposits who suddenly have access to government financing they never could have secured before. Look at what happened after silver was added to the Critical Minerals List in November 2025. Apollo Silver's stock moved. USA Rare Earth's valuation changed overnight when government financing was announced. MP Materials surged when their Pentagon deal was revealed. This isn't speculation. This is following the money, the government money, the $12 billion in Project Vault funding, the Defense Production Act loans, the equity investments. The strategic asset status of silver is real, but the investment thesis has fundamentally changed. Let me be very clear about what we've learned. The price floor system is not a guaranteed buyback program for your coins. It's a border-adjusted tariff mechanism designed to protect domestic producers from Chinese predatory pricing. Project Vault is a $12 billion strategic stockpile that will source from allied producers through long-term contracts. If you're not a mining company or industrial consumer, you're not part of this system. The real opportunity isn't holding physical silver hoping for government intervention. It's identifying which companies will become the government-backed national champions of the new mineral economy. The opportunity of a generation isn't to gamble on the silver spot price based on false hope. The real opportunity is to invest alongside the US government. Stop watching the commodity ticker obsessively. Start looking at the companies getting Defense Production Act contracts. Start analyzing which domestic silver producers have the scale, the permits, and the deposits to supply a $12 billion strategic stockpile. That is where the smart money is going. Now that you know the real strategy, the question isn't whether to invest in silver. The question is, are you investing in the metal or in the infrastructure that's being built around it? Because there's still another layer to this story, a darker truth about why this is all happening now, and what happens if China decides to fight back. To understand why the US government suddenly cares about silver after decades of treating it as just another commodity, you need to understand what happened in the fall of 2025, what happened when economics collided with geopolitics, and what China did that terrified Western governments. October 2025, silver prices surged toward record highs, approaching $90 per ounce. Industrial demand is at all-time levels. Solar panel manufacturers are stockpiling. Electronics producers are scrambling for supply. And then China moves. Throughout 2025, Beijing had already tightened export licenses on 12 different rare earth elements, causing localized supply crunches in Western manufacturing. But silver was different. Silver was everywhere, in everything. April 2025. In response to Trump's first round of tariffs, dubbed Liberation Day tariffs, China restricted rare earth exports. The message was clear. Your technology sector depends on us. Remember that before you escalate. The Trump administration responded by accelerating what would become Project Vault. By November, the U.S. Geological Survey rushed out the updated Critical Minerals List, adding silver, copper, and uranium. By January 2026, the Section 232 investigation was underway. All of this was reaction, panic dressed up as industrial policy. Because Western governments finally understood something they'd ignored for decades. Whoever controls critical minerals controls the future. Let's talk about why silver is different from other critical minerals, why it's not just another commodity on a list, why it's become central to this geopolitical struggle. Silver is the most electrically conductive element known to science, period. Copper comes close and costs less, so it's used when efficiency doesn't matter as much. But when you need maximum conductivity, in space applications, military electronics, high-frequency trading servers, advanced weapon systems, there is no substitute. Unlike rare earths, which are primarily industrial, silver bridges both civilian and military applications. The same material that goes into your iPhone goes into an F-35 fighter jet. The same material that makes solar panels work powers satellite thermal control systems. This creates a strategic problem. If silver becomes scarce or expensive, you can't just prioritize military needs without crippling civilian industry, and you can't just serve civilian needs without compromising national defense. China controls approximately 45% of global silver refining capacity. They're the largest consumer. Solar panel manufacturing alone consumes massive quantities, and they've been stockpiling. In 2024, China increased its solar capacity by 45%. They're building the renewable energy infrastructure of the future, and they're doing it at a scale that dwarfs Western efforts. Every single one of those panels requires silver. China is consuming so much silver for domestic use that they're becoming a net importer, which means they can influence global prices simply through their purchasing decisions. Remember how we started this section? October 2025, silver approaching $90, something broke in the market, and very few people understand what actually happened. Let me show you the sequence of events. Early October 2025, silver rallies from $75 to approach $90. Industrial buying surges. Indian festival season creates additional demand. Physical shortage warnings emerge. Mid-October 2025, London silver vaults see unprecedented withdrawals. Tariff fears accelerate metal movement to U.S., some analysts warning of potential default on futures contracts. Late October 2025, massive silver moved from New York to alleviate London shortage. Price peaks, then pulls back, crisis resolved, temporarily. The official story was that this was just volatility, market dynamics, supply and demand finding equilibrium. But traders who were there tell a different story. The paper-to-physical leverage in silver markets has historically been estimated at ratios as high as 100.1. For every actual ounce of physical silver in exchange vaults, there could be 100 ounces of paper claims, futures contracts, options, ETF shares, all supposedly backed by metal that doesn't fully exist. October 2025 revealed the fragility of this system, and it terrified policymakers. Within weeks of the October squeeze, the pace of policy action accelerated. November 6th, silver added to Critical Minerals List. January 14th, 2026, Section 232 proclamation signed. February 2nd, 2026, Project Vault announced. February 4th, 2026, price floor system unveiled. This wasn't planned industrial policy. This was emergency response. But China wasn't just watching, they were moving too. According to mining industry sources and comments captured on mining.com, when Western banks manipulated the paper silver price down to $72 an ounce on January 30th, 2026, one commenter noted, the manipulation of paper silver price down by the 8 Western banks on 30 January 2026 to a low of $72 an Auxai was a gift to China to buy all the silver in COMEX and LBMA at a discount. Think about that for a moment. While Western banks played games with paper prices, China was buying physical metal. This is the sophisticated strategy of a nation that understands long-term industrial planning. They don't care about quarterly profits or trading desk bonuses. They care about securing the actual physical materials they need for the next 30 years of development. This is why the February 4th Critical Minerals Ministerial wasn't just about the United States. It was about building a counterblock. The European Union, Japan, and Mexico each agreed with the U.S. to set up new policies, including price floors to help solve critical mineral supply chain vulnerabilities. Each also pledged to work toward a binding multilateral agreement on trade in critical minerals. 54 countries represented, 43 foreign ministers, all coordinating to create an alternative to Chinese mineral dominance, a trading bloc, an economic alliance, a Western cartel designed to match China's state-backed industrial strategy. So where does this leave us? What happens next in this escalating mineral war? One likely outcome is a permanently split global silver market, a Western bloc with price floors, strategic stockpiles, and protected domestic production, and a Chinese sphere with different prices, different supply chains, different rules. Companies will have to choose which system they're part of. Investors will have to understand which market their assets are exposed to. The more dangerous scenario is escalation. China responds to Western price floors by restricting exports of processed silver products. The West responds with broader tariffs. Supply chains fracture. Prices spike. New silver mines take 5 to 8 years from discovery to production. New refining capacity takes 3 to 5 years to build. The strategic stockpile can buy time, but it can't solve the fundamental problem. Decades of neglecting domestic mineral production can't be fixed overnight. The third scenario is the most important for long-term investors. Whoever secures reliable silver supply wins the technology race. AI requires massive data centers. Data centers require silver for thermal management and high-speed connections. Electric vehicles require silver. Advanced weapon systems require silver. 6G networks require silver. The country that secures silver supplies secures technological leadership. It's that simple. So what does all of this geopolitical maneuvering mean for individual investors trying to make smart decisions? It means you need to think like a strategist, not a speculator. If you buy physical silver and store it in the United States, you're in the Western block market. If prices split between regions, you're subject to Western pricing dynamics, including potential tariffs, stockpiling effects, and strategic reserve policies. If you're trading on short-term price movements, the paper market volatility will continue, manipulation, squeezes, crashes, the same patterns that have existed for decades. But if you're thinking in 5-10-year time horizons, the structural deficit is undeniable. The world is consuming more silver than it's mining. That can't continue indefinitely. This is the critical distinction. Buying silver coins means you're betting on consumption. You're holding the end product, hoping its value rises. Investing in mining companies means you're betting on production. You're positioned to benefit from the government contracts, strategic stockpiling, and industrial build-out. One of these aligns with government policy, one doesn't. Here's the truth that nobody in the viral videos is telling you. Silver didn't become a critical mineral because the government wants to make you rich. It became critical because the government is terrified of dependence on China. The price floor system isn't designed to boost your coin collection. It's designed to prevent Chinese predatory pricing from destroying American mines. Project Vault isn't a speculator's dream. It's a strategic buffer for industrial consumers who can't afford supply disruptions. But here's what is true. In the process of securing mineral supply chains, the government is creating trillion-dollar infrastructure, domestic mines that need to be built, processing facilities that need financing, supply contracts that span decades, and companies that position themselves as essential to that infrastructure that become national champions in the new mineral economy. Those are the real opportunity. The geopolitical endgame isn't about silver prices going to $100. It's about securing technological supremacy in a world where minerals are weapons. The question is, do you want to be a spectator holding coins, hoping for a windfall, or do you want to invest in the infrastructure that's being built to win this economic war? September 29th, 2020, JP Morgan Chase, America's largest bank, admitted to a crime that had been ongoing for 8 years. They paid $920 million in fines. The Department of Justice didn't charge them with simple fraud. They charged them under RICO, the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, the same law used to prosecute the mafia. And almost nobody knows this happened. Almost nobody understands what it means. And almost nobody is connecting it to what's happening right now with Project Vault and the price floor system. Let me take you inside the largest precious metals manipulation case in American history, because understanding this is essential to understanding why the government suddenly cares about controlling silver prices. Between 2008 and 2016, traders at JP Morgan's precious metals desk engaged in a practice called spoofing. Not occasionally, not in isolated incidents, tens of thousands of times. Here's how spoofing works. You place a massive sell order, thousands of contracts representing millions of ounces of silver you don't actually own and never intend to sell. The order appears in the market. Other traders see it. Algorithmic trading programs see it. Everyone thinks, wow, someone's dumping massive amounts of silver. The price is about to crash. So they start selling. Real traders, real algorithms, real selling pressure. The price drops. Then, seconds before your fake order would execute, you cancel it, and you buy at the artificially suppressed price. You've just manipulated the entire market for personal profit. Michael Nowak, Managing Director, Head of JP Morgan's Global Precious Metals Desk, Greg Smith, Executive Director. These weren't rogue traders. These were the people in charge. August 2022, both convicted after trial. 2023, sentenced to federal prison. Nowak, 1 year and 1 day, plus $35,000 fine. Smith, 2 years, plus $50,000 fine. Actual federal prison for manipulating silver prices. But here's the part that should terrify you. JP Morgan wasn't alone. In total, 8 major banks. Over $1.3 billion in fines. Multiple traders sent to federal prison. Let me walk you through the rogues gallery. JP Morgan Chase, settlement, $9 and $20 million in September 2020. Criminal charges admitted, largest spoofing fine in history. Deutsche Bank, settlement, $38 million in 2016. But more importantly, handed over 350,000 documents and 75 audio recordings from their precious metals trading desk, became cooperating witness against other banks. Scotia Bank, settlement, $127.5 million. Additional $232 million in reserves. Losses forced them to exit precious metals business entirely. UBS, HSBC, Bank of America, Morgan Stanley, named in lawsuits and investigations. Multiple traders convicted. Settlements and cooperation agreements. This wasn't a few bad actors. This was systemic, industry-wide, a coordinated effort to manipulate one of the world's most important commodity markets. But here's the question nobody's asking. If they were manipulating it for decades, and they only got caught for crimes between 2008 and 2016, how far back does this actually go? Remember the Hunt brothers from our previous section? 1980, silver hits $49.45. Then, Silver Rule 7 gets implemented, allowing selling but restricting buying. The price collapses. For 40 years, we were told that was about stopping market manipulation by the Hunts, about preventing a corner. But what if it was the first example of something else? Government intervention to suppress silver prices when they threatened the monetary system. 1980, Hunt brothers defeated through rule changes. 1990s, 2000s, London silver fix operating with no oversight. 2008, 2016, major banks caught spoofing tens of thousands of times. 2020, criminal convictions, billion-dollar fines. 2025 to 2026, government suddenly moves to control silver with strategic stockpiles and price floors. See the pattern? Silver prices get suppressed when they rise too high, sometimes through rule changes, sometimes through market manipulation, and now potentially through government-controlled stockpiles and border-adjusted pricing. So here's the question. Did the manipulation stop when they got caught, or did it just evolve? When you see the price of silver on financial news, you're not seeing the price of physical silver. You're seeing the price of futures contracts traded on COMEX. Futures are promises to deliver silver at a future date. But most contracts never result in physical delivery. Traders close them out before expiration, settling in cash. And here's the critical part. The leverage in these markets can be extreme. Estimates vary, but historical leverage in silver markets has been as high as 100.1. For every physical ounce in COMEX vaults, there could be 100 ounces of paper claims. This creates the perfect environment for manipulation, because you can sell silver you don't have. You can create unlimited selling pressure with paper contracts, and we know from the criminal prosecutions that major banks did exactly this. Tens of thousands of times. Now connect this to Project Vault and the price floor system. The government is saying as state, we're going to protect domestic silver producers from predatory pricing through border-adjusted tariffs. But what they're really saying is, we're going to protect domestic producers from the same manipulation games that banks played for decades. If Chinese producers or Western banks acting on their behalf try to crash silver prices through massive paper selling to destroy American mines, the tariff system kicks in. Domestic prices stay stable. Mines survive. It's essentially an admission that market manipulation is real, ongoing, and threatening to national security. So what does all of this mean for the average investor? For someone who's been watching the viral videos and wondering if they should buy silver? Despite the criminal convictions, despite the billion-dollar fines, the fundamental structure of the silver market hasn't changed. Paper leverage still exists. Futures markets still dominate price discovery. The same mechanisms that enabled manipulation before still exist. The fact that the government is implementing price floors and strategic stockpiles is an implicit admission that market-based pricing doesn't work for critical materials. They're saying, we can't trust the market to deliver accurate price signals because the market has been compromised. Project Vault is about physical stockpiling. The tariff system is about physical production. The Defense Production Act deals are about physical mines. The government is choosing physical over paper. Which means, if you're going to invest in this space, you better understand the difference. One of these is gambling, that manipulation will stop or work in your favor. The other is investing in what the government is actively trying to build. Here's what you need to understand about silver market manipulation. It's real. It's been proven in federal court. 8 banks paid over $1.3 billion. Traders went to prison. We have the receipts, 350,000 documents, 75 audio recordings, chat logs showing coordination. But the manipulation didn't start in 2008 when the prosecutors' cases began, and it didn't end in 2016 when those cases ended. The machinery that enabled it is still there. The paper markets, the leverage, the opacity, the conflicts of interest. What's changed is that the government now cares, because silver isn't just a commodity anymore. It's a strategic asset, a national security priority, a critical input for the technology that will determine who wins the 21st century. The price floor system, Project Vault, the border-adjusted tariffs, these aren't gifts to silver coin holders. They're defenses against the kind of manipulation that's been going on for decades. The question isn't whether manipulation exists. Federal prosecutors proved it does. The question is, are you investing based on manipulated paper prices, or are you investing in the physical infrastructure the government is building to bypass those manipulated markets? We've covered a lot of ground. The price floor lie, Project Vault, the geopolitical endgame, decades of proven manipulation. Now it's time to answer the question you've been asking from the beginning. What should you actually do? Let's start by acknowledging what we know to be absolutely true. Silver was added to the U.S. Critical Minerals List on November 6, 2025. The U.S. imported 64% of its silver consumption in 2024. Project Vault is a real $12 billion strategic stockpile initiative announced February 2, 2026. JD Vance announced a price floor system for critical minerals on February 4, 2026. Major banks paid over $1.3 billion in fines for manipulating silver markets, with traders serving federal prison time. Industrial demand for silver hit record levels in 2024, with structural supply deficits continuing for 4 consecutive years. All of this is documented, verified, real. Now, let's acknowledge what's also true. None of this means the government is going to buy your silver coins for $100 per ounce. The price floor is for domestic producers, not retail investors. Project Vault sources from mining companies with long-term contracts, not from coin dealers. The strategic stockpile is for industrial consumers facing supply disruptions, not for speculators hoping for a windfall. Understanding this distinction between what's real and what's been misrepresented is the difference between making informed investment decisions and losing money on false hope. So where is the actual opportunity? If the viral narrative is wrong, what's the right way to think about this? Let me give you a framework. 3 tiers of opportunity, each with different risk profiles and different alignment with government policy. Tier 1, the national champions. These are companies directly participating in Project Vault or receiving Defense Production Act backing. Companies with domestic mineral deposits on U.S. soil, existing production or near-term production capability, government relationships and contracts. Critical minerals, especially silver, rare earths, lithium, copper. Companies like MP Materials, Rare Earths, received Pentagon equity deal. Trilogy, metals, copper, zinc, gold, silver in Alaska, received $35.6 million government stake. Domestic silver producers with deposits in the U.S. Why is this tier highest confidence? Government is the ultimate deep-pocketed buyer. Contracts insulate from global price volatility. De-risked financing makes projects economically viable. Strategic importance means political support through cycles. Tier 2, the supply chain adjacents. These are companies that support the critical minerals infrastructure, processing and refining operations, equipment manufacturers for mining industry, logistics and storage specialists, technology companies enabling mineral extraction, not necessarily getting direct government contracts, but benefiting from the overall build-out of domestic mineral capacity. Think about it. If the U.S. is going to reduce dependence on Chinese refining, someone needs to build new refineries. If domestic mines are expanding, someone needs to supply equipment. If Project Vault is storing minerals, someone needs to provide secure warehousing. The entire ecosystem expands. Tier 3, physical silver. Owning physical silver, coins, bars, ETFs, backed by metal. Why is this lowest tier for government policy upside? Because nothing in the announced policies directly benefits retail holders of physical metal. What physical silver provides: exposure to spot price movements, inflation hedge, potentially, store of value, historically, portfolio diversification. What it does not provide: guaranteed government buyback, protection from paper market manipulation, access to Project Vault pricing, benefit from border-adjusted tariffs. This doesn't mean physical silver can't appreciate. Industrial demand is real. Supply deficits are real. Long-term fundamentals may be strong, but you're betting on market forces, not government policy. And we've spent 4 parts of this documentary showing you that market forces in silver have been manipulated for decades. Now let's talk about risks, because every investment has them, and pretending otherwise is how people lose money. What if the next administration reverses course? What if budget constraints kill Project Vault? What if China and the U.S. reach a trade deal that eliminates the need for strategic stockpiles? Government policy creates opportunity, but it also creates risk. Companies that depend entirely on government contracts are vulnerable to political winds. Don't bet everything on one policy initiative. Even if Project Vault is real now, Washington can change. Mining is hard. It's capital intensive, environmentally challenging, politically complicated, and prone to cost overruns and delays. Just because a company has government backing doesn't guarantee successful execution. Projects can fail, deposits can disappoint, management can misallocate capital. Don't just buy because a company mentions critical minerals or strategic partnership. Understand their assets, management track record, and realistic production timelines. Even if everything we've discussed is correct, even if Project Vault succeeds, even if silver becomes more critical, Even if domestic mining expands, timing matters. Stocks can go down before they go up. Mining companies are cyclical and volatile. Commodity prices fluctuate. Being right about the long-term thesis doesn't protect you from short-term pain. If you're investing based on multi-year structural trends, you need a multi-year time horizon. Don't invest money you might need next quarter. All right, you've made it through 5 parts. You understand what's real and what's hype. You know the framework. You understand the risks. What's the actual action plan? Step 1. Stop watching the hype videos. Seriously, if someone is screaming about guaranteed $100 silver with clickbait thumbnails, they either don't understand what's happening or they're selling something. Get your information from primary sources. USGS Critical Minerals List, official government publication. EXIM Bank announcements, official. Federal Register filings, official. Company SEC filings, required disclosures. Step 2. Research domestic mineral producers. Start with companies that have deposits in the United States or allied nations. Produce or are developing critical minerals. Silver, copper, rare earths, lithium. Have mentioned government partnerships, DPA considerations, or FAST-41 permitting. Questions to ask. What exactly do they mine or produce? Where are their assets located? What stage of development are they in? Do they have any government relationships or contracts? What's their cash position and need for financing? Who's on the management team? And what's their track record? Step 3. Understand position sizing. Even great ideas can be bad investments if you overallocate. Even if everything we've discussed plays out perfectly, individual mining companies are risky. Conservative approach, 5 to 10% of portfolio in critical minerals theme, spread across 3-5 companies. Mix of established producers and development stage companies. Aggressive approach, 15 to 25% of portfolio. Concentrated positions in high conviction names. Accept higher volatility for higher potential returns. Speculative approach, 25% plus position. Understand you're making a big bet, could double or go to zero. Never invest more than you can afford to lose. Never invest based solely on a documentary or YouTube video, including this one. Do your own research, understand what you're buying. Step 4. Monitor policy developments. This is an evolving situation. Project Vault is launching now. The price floor system is being implemented. Defense Production Act deals are being negotiated. Track, EXIM, bank loan approvals, and disbursements. New Defense Production Act contracts announced. Companies added to or removed from government partnerships. Changes to the Critical Minerals List. Trade negotiations with China and allies. Actual project development milestones for mining companies. Before we close, let me give you the contrarian case. The reasons this whole thesis might be wrong. Government industrial policy has a terrible track record. Solyndra, corn ethanol subsidies, countless failed attempts to pick winners. What if Project Vault becomes another expensive failure? Technology substitution. What if breakthrough battery chemistry eliminates the need for silver in solar panels? What if alternative materials replace silver in electronics? Industrial demand could crater. China could flood the market. They have enormous refining capacity and significant stockpiles. They could deliberately crash prices to destroy Western mining companies before domestic production scales up. The paper markets might never break. Despite manipulation, despite supply deficits, despite everything we've discussed, futures markets have suppressed silver prices for decades. They might continue doing so. These are real risks. I'm not going to pretend they don't exist. Any honest analysis has to acknowledge them. The question is, do you think the probability of the thesis being correct outweighs these risks? That's a decision only you can make. So here's my final verdict after months of research, hundreds of documents reviewed, and 5 parts of this documentary. The silver price floor narrative being sold on social media is a lie. The government is not going to make your coin collection worth $100 per ounce through a guaranteed buyback program. But something real is happening. The United States government has designated silver as critical to national security for the first time in history. They're building a $12 billion strategic stockpile. They're implementing systems to protect domestic producers. They're taking equity stakes in mining companies. This is the largest shift in American industrial policy toward critical minerals in generations. If you chase the lie, the fantasy of government-guaranteed silver prices, you'll probably lose money. But if you understand the truth, that the government is building industrial infrastructure and backing companies that align with strategic goals, there might be significant opportunity. Not because of some price floor for your coins, but because after decades of neglect, America is finally treating mineral independence as a matter of national security. And when the government decides something is a national security priority and backs it with billions in financing, things get built, companies get funded, infrastructure gets developed. The question isn't whether silver is going to $100. The question is, do you want to invest in the companies building the infrastructure of America's critical mineral future? Now you know what they aren't telling you. Now you understand the real story. Now you can make an informed decision.